Hello and welcome to an episode of Casual Friday. I'm here with the Duck. As always, the show is brought to you by Woo. Links available in the description below. Don, it's yet another alt season ruined by Israel.
It's the fifth in a row or something like that.
This streak is unbelievable, you know? Just when things were getting good, we have the geopolitical candles, an escalation in the Middle East type candles. It
Every
isn't
time.
every time, yeah. I think what happened was that Netanyahu saw that James Wynn was about to make it all back on Hyperliquid, and he was like, "Listen, sending the market makers after him wasn't enough. We need to take more drastic action." So sometimes you just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, I respect that.
People underestimate the extent to which world governments will alter reality in order to hunt your stops. Like that's kind of the primary consideration when it comes to geopolitics and the economy and just the political economy world order. It's like, who gets liquidated if I take this course of action?
Yeah.
Intraday, of course.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's the government. I would say it's the universe, you know? The
That's true.
universe is just like, this cannot happen.
Yeah.
Send in the nukes.
There's no real entropy. It all just converges towards who's going to get fucked over, And the only way to fight against it is by drawing on candlestick charts, which is what we're
Exactly.
here to do. This is really one of the most important jobs in the world, really. Yeah. Anyway, the thing is, like, jokes aside, there is a lot of conspiratorial thinking around like trading and news events in general. Like, I get it when it's insiders sell a stock before some announcement comes out, and filing wise, at least in equities, you have to disclose it. And there is a ton of like wheeling and dealing in crypto as far as insider trading goes, like for sure, definitely. But that's not to say that like every single piece of news is priced into the chart and is always known, and your job as a trader. Have you seen this narrative before? Like, your job as a trader is to just like follow the fucking footprints of all the insider traders and
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
ride their coattails and stuff. I don't think that's right,
No, it's
personally.
so dumb.
But there is like a popular school of thought that like there is no like news doesn't matter. It's all priced in, and if it isn't priced in, you should have been able to tell by the chart that something was going to hit. Like the FBI does a secret raid on some fucking compound, and it's like, oh well, who knew this? Well, it was the president and the guys watching the 5 minute RSI, because that divergence, got crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like most of this on the BTC front is just like a fucking battle to save the weekly. Because a
Hmm.
couple of weeks ago, we talked about the 104k level being like, there are a few high time frame, high signal patterns on BTC, high time frame failed breakouts, sort of weekly failed breakouts, weekly failed bearish retests. Those like tend to be the good ones, and there are some lower time frame versions of those, so on and so forth. And ever since that point, we've just been glued to 104k, which is very much that same kind of weekly structure. And we've spent a month here now, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
slightly more. That's no joke. Like, we closed above it on the 12th of May candle, and then 1 2 3, and this is like the fourth week, and it's already Friday spent at this level. So I mean, it's consolidation, it's nice, it's above the level at least. That's also nice, but some urgency, I think, at this point would be welcome, especially if we, having spent a month here, and now we get geopolitical escalation tension stuff, and if the market's still willing to scoop it up at 103 above 104, I think that's about as much as you could hope for and expect. Like, if that's not good enough to send it from this level, then I think it starts to look a bit shit. What do you think?
Yeah. The longer we spend here, the worse it gets, I think.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, it is already an immediate retest of a breakout, which I don't usually like, and then spending more and more time there just doesn't really feel so good. But also, what we have to take into consideration is that, like, whenever this like kind of macro situation and it still holds a level, that is a sign of strength, right? So, like, if there was nothing going on and we'd just be chilling at the level, kind of grinding into it, like over months and months, that'd be one thing. But if there's obvious kind of like FUD going around, then I mean, then it's not as bad as it would be usually. But I still think like the longer we spend here, the worse it gets for the bulls. Um, but also obviously, like if this whole macro situation kind of intensifies and gets worse, I could also see a world in which it breaks, and then the next level for me at least is like at 90 95k. Like 95k is the greedy level in 90k would be the range low for me. So like there's on the weekly time frame not that much in terms of support if this one breaks. I think it's that important. Like we break 104, maybe retest 90k, but that would have to go alongside kind of the S&P or just generally like the world kind of like going into a worse spot than it already is right now.
Great. So basically back to where we were a few weeks ago. 104k is important, guys. Good luck. Hang on.
Yep, basically.
And ETH is still using your entry as resistance. So literally nothing has changed. Time is a flat
Yeah.
circle. Okay. Good to know.
Nothing's changed, but the macro situation has obviously gotten a little bit worse.
Yeah.
And resistance is resisting. I talked on the Wednesday stream when we were trading at 2.8k on ETH. I was like, hey, dudes, there's a resistance here, like a diagonal resistance, actually, the one that we drew from like the low of like the 27th of June 2022 all the way up, which acted as support, and now it's kind of resistance, and that's actually been doing really well. That diagonal in confluence to the horizontal resistance is resisting, which I don't necessarily like because that is roughly my entry. So not great, but
I mean,
your
entry really is a magnet on both sides.
Yep.
You really know how to pick your spots. I mean, yeah, as far as BTC goes, I think a lot of the market, basically, that there's a reflex to buy the war headlines, essentially, like post wipeout. And that has historically worked out all right if you can actually survive the impulse. So I think some of that is going on. Really, the risk in that trade is that you get some sort of escalation, and so even if you're right, you could sit underwater for a bit and have your entry tested. So I think there's like these sort of war headline trades in particular. They're kind of two-part in most cases. The first is like the immediate headline, like when do the liquidations stop? And the second one is like, when do the skies look sufficiently clear, literally and metaphorically, for this thing to start like walking back up? So I think part one is kind of done, right? Like we had the wick, we had the fast move overnight, thin books, liquidations, open interest cleared out, etc. And I think we're in part two now, which is people just keeping an eye on headlines essentially and thinking, when is retaliation going to happen? Is it the Chud Jack nothing ever happens meme? Like, where do you kind of go from here? That's sort of what's, I think, narratively going on at the moment. And then I think realistically, if you want to trade around these news and headlines, you're gonna have to trade on the weekend too, because the more, the closer the escalation, if there is going to be one, the second part, you need to be a bit more sort of plugged in and time sensitive around it, I think.
Yeah, how this usually goes is that you get the first flush. I don't know why, but it's just how like how I've experienced it a lot. You get the first flush during the week, and then during the weekend something happens, and crypto people take that as an escalation, and then the entire market kind of sends a second nuke, and then on Monday nothing ever happens and you go back up. That's usually how it has been in the past.
Yeah, we like overreact.
Yeah, basically, like something small happens and someone in the market is like, okay, there's a lot of people on edge right now. Let me just take a position, push the price like a little bit lower, and people are gonna freak out. And then people keep freaking out, and kind of like the price keeps going lower. And because the price keeps going lower, people kind of see that as like insider knowing that there's an escalation coming or whatever. And then you get a full-blown nuke, and on Monday Trump walks everything back. I mean, this one is not necessarily on Trump, but that's kind of how it has historically been during this whole terrorist saga, right? Like you get like the escalation during the weekend, the entire market nukes, and then on during the week it comes back. In this case, I find it quite dangerous to assume that nothing ever happens, like the meme, nothing ever happens, because I mean, something could happen quite easily here. But also, like, I mean, the charts are not that bad, so maybe nothing happens. I don't know. It's really hard to say, but I find it, especially in this case, right, with the U.S. economy and with the tariffs, I find it quite easy to say, okay, nothing ever happens, because I know that if it gets too bad, Trump is gonna just walk back everything. In this case, if it gets too bad, I don't necessarily think these leaders in the Middle East are willing to just walk everything back just because the markets are going lower. I don't think they care as much as Trump does. So this one you have to be a little bit more careful of with escalation and everything.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also, like, realistically, what kind of macro edge are people going to have in predicting escalation, timeline of escalation, how the S&P is going to react? Because also the classic response here that's interesting is gold went up and Bitcoin went down and the S&P went down, you know? So it's not, as usual, when it would be convenient for us to be this chaos risk-off asset, didn't really come through in the same way. And all the muscle memory just goes back to bidding the fucking shiny Peter Schiff rock.
The dumb thing is that like it's really in the hands of a bunch of people that have enough money to push this market around, because if you can make the narratives really easy, like people can just make the narratives by bidding this thing. Like if Bitcoin is bid in the right moment, people are going to be like, oh yeah, it's finally acting like gold in these moments, and then it's going to get more of a bid because people are like running with that narrative. If Bitcoin dumps, people are going to be like, oh, it's because it's a risk asset, and then it's going to dump more. It's kind of annoying in this market where like you can make a good argument on either side, but it really depends on a few players that are willing to kind of put a bid out, and everyone else just rushes back into rushes on the side that sets the narrative, and that's kind of been the case. Whereas, for example, gold, like you're pretty, like if something bad happens, usually gold goes up. Like that's very rare that fails. In crypto, it's kind of like it can go either way realistically, just because it's both at the same time. It's an advantage and a disadvantage, right? To be able to say like, hey, we're both a risk asset and a risk off asset, or supposed to be.
Yeah, it's like when.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. On the technical side, if this decides to make another push, do you have like a sort of maximum tolerance level where you're like, okay, well, this is the second leg, maybe this is the panic leg or whatever, but this should still really hold? Because I think we kind of tested it, to be honest, which is like the daily lowest close at like 104k essentially, because that's the 4-hour bottom of the range as well that we reclaimed and retested. Like anything much below that, like 101, etc., those range lows, I feel is too long gone through the weekly at that stage. Like we had a slight detour last week through those kind of weekly lows, and that was brought up very quickly.
Yeah.
If you're going to talk about like a failed breakdown, and we had, if you look on the weekly, what that looked like, we had 3 weeks worth of lows just built up, right? Like slightly inching higher lows from the candles of 12th of May, 19th, and the 26th. And then we just kind of ran through those on that week and closed above the level. So that's kind of tolerable, I think, on the weekly, if you're going to make an argument for 104k still acting as support. But going through those lows again, or towards those lows again even, to me would be a sign of weakness. So I think at most, the most that I'd be willing to tolerate, at least if I'm aggressively punting this, is like 103, 104-ish, because anything below that, it's like, well, how much more can you reasonably ask this 104 level to do? Like, you've had the weekly fucking run, you've had like the rounded retest, you've had all this shit, you've had headlines coming into it. If that, if that's not enough to clear out positioning and let it drift back up, then maybe it just doesn't want to. It's like the opposite end of the argument of, oh, you've had like a failed breakout and now you're back above the level, so you should go for real this time. It's the same thing here. We've had the support, we've already pierced through it, we had the failed breakdown, now we've even had headline news nuking into it. Like, how many more chances are you going to give this level? I think the answer is like 0, like no more chances. This should be it. And from a time-based perspective as well, we've fucking spent a month here now. We've had a failed breakdown and we've had a headline nuke into it. Like, come on, get a fucking move on if you're gonna get a move on at all, I think.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I generally look at this thing and I think like if we make any new lows, we're probably just gonna break 100k again, and
Right.
then it's probably gonna wipe. So it's basically like this has to be the low, and then we cannot really get the typical kind of weekend price action because otherwise the daily just starts.
It's too bad, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is one of those like classic. Either this is the bottom or I'm gay type of trades. If you remember those, you know.
Yeah. I mean, generally, like it's a little bit of a struggle here, because I could easily see this happen basically over the weekend, like a little bit. The market freaks out a little bit more. Cannot really anchor itself to the S&P because that's closed, and then like we wipe out. But then I look at the daily and I'm like, okay, but what does that actually mean? And if we set a new low below 101, I could easily see us wipe towards like 95, if not 90, pretty quickly. It would technically not change too much if it's in a macro kind of like headline thing. But it's still like right now it's a really tough spot. Like it's the worst kind of timing. I mean, obviously, like this is a little bit rich complaining about timing of a war, right? But for the market as a whole, like right now how it's set up, this kind of shit set up. Worst timing for it to, because basically when either this holds and the market looks quite good still, but the way it's set up kind of enables the market to full wipe, where just kind of like sitting there being like, okay, if I sell now and it goes up, I'm the biggest moron on the planet. But if I don't sell now and the predictable kind of wipe on the weekend comes and it's trading at 90K, I'm gonna feel like a fucking moron too. So
yeah, when you feel like a sort of plausible idiot on both sides, that's when you're in a tough spot typically.
Yeah.
I think you've correctly identified the tension there, right? It's like on the one side you're like, oh, well, there should be, or at least there's a high probability trade in a lower volume follow through wipeout, and so I shouldn't buy at this level. I should wait for that. But then on the other end of that is if it does stab below 104 and give you that wipeout, then the entire chart looks like fucking shit and it's probably going to roll over. That's the tension, right? I don't know what the answer is, to be honest. I think if you're really glued in, then you could punt 104 and just fucking babysit it all weekend, and any sign of weakness, just like get the fuck out and reassess. But I wouldn't be comfortable doing like a 104 set and forget type of thing, personally. Just because of this like weekend headline risk or whatever else. The hilarious part is this is just like such micro masturbation, right? Because again, if you look on the weekly, it's like, well, we're still closing above it. We just spent a month here now, so it's the same shit. If it fails to break, if you get a failed breakout, that's a risk off signal. And if you don't, well, I mean, on the weekly at least, you've looked at the chart like 4 times and not a ton has changed. Maybe you're getting a bit impatient and time sensitive, but like, I think the daily's been super rough to trade. That's what I tried to say on the Monday video that had no audio. Like if you look at how the daily has behaved around this weekly level, starting from like the 10th of May, you got a bit of resistance, right? Then you get a breakout retest and a push up, but the push up only lasted like 3 days and it gave you like a pitiful all-time high breakout, I think. After that, it came back to retest 104, gave a tiny bounce, nuked below the level, retested from the underside, no resistance, fucking mooned through it again, and now we're like right back at it. Like that, none of that is particularly clean or palatable, you know? None of the retests are working out super well. None of the breaks are following through. You're just getting fucking chopped at this level. Yeah. So that's, I think, a bit of context that I want to add when it comes to us like masturbating about 104K on the fucking 4 hour and the daily and this close, that close, etc. Because like it's a good level on the weekly, but it's been shit to try to derive signals from it for the last month because the setups themselves just like haven't worked. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think it's very fair. It's kind of like just a shit situation to trade in generally.
Yeah. So fuck it, let's just look at ETH instead. What do you say about that?
Yeah, but I mean that's the same story, dude. The same story.
Yeah, dude, the ETH USD weekly is actually miserable. Like that is. Candle bodies are illegal. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I've learned from looking at this thing.
The cool thing is like Bitcoin keeps stabbing into support and ETH keeps stabbing into resistance.
Jesus.
So on the ETH side, I'd rather stab into support into resistance 1,000,000 times than stab into support 1,000,000 times. Like ETH has the advantage over there, I think. But if Bitcoin rolls over, I don't think ETH necessarily makes it too. But yeah, basically, I think on both of these, you probably like if you get lucky and this wipes out, like over the weekend, and you get like a wick from anywhere between 90 and 95K on Bitcoin, and then the corresponding price on ETH, right? Whether that is 2K, like I think 2K-ish would be nice. If you get that, like that's a gift that you can probably sell into next week if you actually think everything's just gonna roll over. Like I think those kind of bids make a lot of sense over the weekend just because of how everything's set up. If you don't get those, then you don't get them, right? But that's the only kind of trade idea I have on both of them. Basically, like most of the time, you're gonna make money if it wipes out and you get like a wick over the weekend into 1995. Same thing. I think ETH's better in that regard. Like if Bitcoin wipes out, getting the ETH, like buying ETH when Bitcoin has bottomed right now, I think is probably gonna give you a better reward.
Is that based on ETH BTC or something else?
ETH has generally just shown strength, and I think there's a good chance that ETH might, like for example, like Bitcoin goes to like 95K, which is like let me check before I say something stupid. It's like 8, 9, 10% away, right? And I think if that happens, ETH could go towards like 2K ish, which is 20% away. And I think basically ETH would mean revert harder. Eyes have been on ETH basically. The other altcoins have not been doing as well as ETH has. So I think that would bounce better. So if you get that panic wipeout over the weekend, I think the ETH trade would be interesting. You can base it on the Bitcoin support levels. But I'm not sure that is going to happen. I'm just not going to do anything because I'm old and boring.
We're just fucking washed. That's what's happening.
Yeah,
you know.
But I'm just saying, like that would be a setup like that I usually would trade, right? And then I wouldn't necessarily take the short side of it. I prefer just taking the wipeout and running with it, because in that instance, like I have the upside if it goes up, and I do get the downside, kind of like the liquidation kind of candle would give me some upside in the downside as well. Saying that I would get it cheaper than it should be.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. But like
with that, I'd be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, you know, there's something odd about having a fixed-ish, I mean, people are going to laugh at this, a fixed schedule show, because like this is anything but that. But like in theory, having a fixed schedule show, because like if we talk about mostly high time frame swing trading oriented stuff, right? Or at least like daily, weekly, monthly. And then you have a weekly chart that looks like this. And I've just zoomed in to the ETH USD weekly.
Oh, beautiful.
And it's like, what the fuck are we supposed to do? You know, like we can rehash the same points. We can talk about how maybe the probability distributions evolved somewhat depending on like time spent at the level and how the market's been reacting, sort of headlines, what's happened to open interest, etc. But that's all still kind of micro analysis, right? That's not super relevant towards the higher time frame stuff. I mean, do you remember this ETH roadmap chart that we marked up a while ago with the resistance cluster and then 2K and then 1.9 and then 4K or some shit like that? Like, if you just followed that, it still works, you know? Like, there are some wicks to go with it, but that, like, it not much has changed. I think a lot of the time you sort of make content and there's an expectation that like, oh, here we go, there's a fucking update. It's like, there is no update. I love you, you know? Like, it's what it feels like. But I will say that there has been a material change, at least on the daily time frame, because we have a failed breakout now. That's kind of, I think, one of the, if I look at all the majors, like the developments on BTC, the weekly hasn't really changed yet. The daily, I think as long as it's above like 104K still, that's not a huge change. The real change has happened on ETH, not on the weekly, because that chart just is not allowed to exist. But it's on the daily, where you've actually had like a material development, which in my view is the 2660 whatever failed breakout. Failed breakouts are bad. There you go. There's some real alpha technical education. You know, when a market tries to go up and it doesn't work, that's not a good sign.
No, it's not.
And that's kind of what's happened here. Sometimes when the market is truly in kind of chop mode, and we've seen this happen probably more on BTC, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like you get one side blown out and people are like, oh, that's it, it's over. And then it breaks down, but then it's basically a mirror image of what happened at the highs. You know, like both sides essentially fail to break from balance. So you have a break to the upside, that fails, and everyone's like, oh, it's fucking cooked, and then it starts to break down, and people short that, being like, oh, look, the failed breakout has now led to a real breakdown, it's over. But then what happens is the market just kind of makes its way back, and so you've just been shafted on both ends of it, and the market stays balanced while you kind of lost money on the breakout and on the breakdown, or at least on one of those legs, you know? So I think, ironically, one of the best cases is something like that, where it wasn't ready to break out, but that's not a sign that it's ready to break down either. But as we know, that's basically entirely BTC contingent. Like, I think if 104k holds, that's a reasonable roadmap for ETH, that 2400 is mostly going to hold. You know, like, I think that makes sense. It's like, well, you know, the high time frame floors that we have, we're going to wick and poke and prod, but 104-ish and 2.4-ish, the market's going to stay balanced enough for those to remain in place. Like, okay, fine. But then if BTC rolls over, I think we do a bit of gap filling. I'm not going to lie, Don, on ETH. Because at that point, what it looks like is ETH broke out. There was like a bunch of, you know, there was a decent amount of piling on that trade. Failed breakout into real breakdown. Then you kind of start looking to the left for, you know, there's that big impulse candle from 1.8 all the way to 2.2, right? Like one of the biggest moves of the day. That entire structure, I think, starts becoming vulnerable, and you have to most likely delve into what, round number world, like 2K, sub 2K, 1990s or whatever, that type of shit. That's it, really. So TLDR, if the floors hold and the market's willing to absorb the headline nukes and there's no follow through leg, then 104, 2.4 are your kind of discount levels, i.e. the market only got here because of headlines, but the level is good. If those break, then I don't think ETH is going to hold 2.4 if BTC doesn't hold 104. And there's probably some room, reflexive, whatever bullshit room to the downside. What that means in practical terms, outside of if it holds, go up, if it doesn't hold, go down. Like, thank you very much. Great analysis. Can't believe I'm listening to this fucking show. I think what that means in practical terms is you either just fuck off, or if you're going to trade the 104, 2.4 thing, you have to do it with very active management, especially with like geopolitical spillover weekend type shit coming up. You can punt the levels with tight management, tight stops, whatever. But I think more attractive than that would be either the market climbing back up off the back of nothing ever happens Chudjack meme, or the real wipeout trade. We actually get some real fucking liquidations on the follow through. You can scoop those up whenever, you know, as you normally would when the tape slows down or whatever the fuck people use to trade those things nowadays. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I generally like the situation in my eyes. Basically, we are at the perfect support levels on everything right now, but we're also set up for a nuke over the weekend. Make of that what you will, you know. Like that's
so funny.
annoying.
Yeah, that's the one line summary, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're amazing supports that may just get nuked on the weekend.
Yeah, so I mean, it's annoying. But if you get the nuke on the weekend, that's going to be a great trade. If you don't get the nuke on the weekend, I mean, be happy in spot. That's kind of like what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton to add to that, to be honest. At least the levels are clear, and it's also helpful that they haven't fucking changed in the last month, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we almost had alt season too.
We almost had alt season, but yeah, we got Netanyahu season instead.
Yeah. I mean, what are you gonna do? Like, the universe couldn't let it happen.
I know. Okay, it's brutal. Some of these alts look like fucking shit, by the way. Just gonna put that out there. I mean, my watch list is super short in general. But I know even like the liquid majors, a lot of them are getting slapped up and have just not had a very good time in this 4-week consolidation.
Everything was already looking like shit before this happened, but at least they'd had some green candles at some places. Now we have everything looks like shit, like long term, because if you zoom out, like everything looks horrendous. But then you also like you zoom in, and now it's not only like the zoomed out look that is horrendous, it's also the zoomed in look that is horrendous, which is not the best.
Any of these in particular that you think are interesting, at least? I mean, Fartcoin, Hype.
Yeah, Sol. I would say like ETH is clearly the best one out of all of them. Like that's at least the chart that makes sense. Then you have like
I mean, Hype. Is it like the fucking weekly is the
but I mean,
the money loss generating machine, and then the daily is just scammed you, like literally as of 2 days ago.
I don't know. Like I look at the weekly and this looks fine to me, honestly. Like even if it pulls back to like 2.2k, Even if it wicks all the way to 2K and then bounces back to 2.2K or before closing, like all of that would still be fine.
Fine,
Like,
but then I've spent like 8 fucking weeks in this trade, and it's spent 4 of those at resistance, and then another 4 pulling back.
4 months. I spent like 4 months in this trade. And
that's true. I've forgotten that you're insane. So for you, this is like, time is not linear when you've held ETH for as long as you have and through this kind of volatility.
You just have 2 children and you forget about your like over all the loss of sleep. You forget that you're holding ETH. Not just generally, like ETH looks fine to me still. And then you go down the list and there's like a few that have been outperforming. Like you said, Hype has been decent. And I mean, that's probably still a good chart. I haven't looked at it in a while. But yeah, I mean, that's still a really, really good chart. Even with the downside now, like that just still looks very, very strong. That's one where I wouldn't want to bet on. Like, it's going to wipe out eventually. And then it's kind of like Solana this cycle, right? Where it kept running and everyone was kept looking for, okay, where is this going to top out? And it just never really pulled back. And once it did, it was just over. I think that's Hype, basically. I think it's going to keep going up until it actually has that one pullback that people have been waiting for this entire run up. And then they're going to bid it. It's going to bounce like 30-40%, and then it's going to just kill you. So that's kind of like, I don't think that's necessary. Like, as long as the market is doing well, I think Hype is probably going to do fine as well. And you have Fart Coins, one of the better meme coins, this one that you mentioned. That's also still a fine chart to me.
I mean, it's getting borderline in terms of what's acceptable. You know, like
I mean, turn on the weekly chart and like go on a long-term time frame. Like MEXC has had it listed for a while.
MEXC, yeah.
And then you're like, I don't know why I'm complaining, you know?
Yeah, that's true. MEXC has had it for a while for sure.
And I mean, that can pull back to 0.7 and still be totally fine.
That's exactly what I was going to... Well, 0. Yeah, I guess 0.7. I was going to say, like, daily trend looks decently intact, like 0.9-ish. You know,
daily looks a little bit worse.
Yeah.
If it goes to 0.7, but like if you go to the high time frames, like even if you turn on the monthly on MEXC, you're like, people are fucking on crack because like everyone's panicking, and you turn on the monthly, and you're like, this is what you're panicking about. I mean, it's
monthly
the thing with
coin chart, amazing.
Yeah, I mean the thing is with these big movers, right? And this is obviously different for the smaller movers, but like Fartcoin went from 0.2 to 1.6, right? That's a huge multiplier. And then the downside is obviously, like, if it retraces 50% of that move, you're going to lose a lot of money from the top, but it's still decent, right? Like a meme coin can retrace 50%. And now, obviously, the problem is that it then looks like it's rolled over and you're holding something that is inherently worthless, which makes it really hard to hold, right? Because if you then hold it and it's actually the top, you're going to lose all your money. And I think that's kind of the difficulty. But if you just completely disregard that whole idea and you just look at the chart and you're like, okay, what is acceptable? This can pull back quite a bit before it gets unacceptable to me. Like, I think anything below like 0.7 would start looking really bad, but that's still like 30% away.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with like all of that. The thing is, this is just not how people view and trade altcoins, especially this time around. You know, it seems like the time horizons have narrowed massively, and they've always been shorter for altcoins, right? Like, you'd look at you'd post like a weekly or even monthly chart on alts, you'd get laughed at, being like, bro, what the fuck? Like, no one is trading on this time horizon. But it feels like that's gotten even narrower now, where daily chart for an altcoin, people are like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is not the correct. These are not the rules of engagement. Even though, as you know, if you look at Hype and if you look at Fartcoin, etc., all these things, the less you trade it, the better in general.
Yeah. I mean, they've been good on high time frames.
Yes, exactly. That's what I think is sort of the missing link there. So one's desire to trade does not always correspond with the actual expected value of trading, especially in the trending environment. You know, it's like once you set up your positions, most of it is like trailing and monitoring, as opposed to in out in out in out. If you really care about that type of stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Like, it's also a very weird market where you've just got massive outliers, and in general,
everything else is horrendous.
Everything else is not great. I was gonna look at Maker because some of the DeFi stuff's been doing all right actually. I mean, that's kind of choppy. Aave's been good. Last few weeks that really pushed up, but now it's into this really fucking cluttery area.
I mean, Aave BTC even looks good.
Aave BTC cursed pair. Hold on.
I mean, like, it's obviously not the greatest, but it's
there's
green candles.
There's green candles. Yeah. I don't know,
dude. DeFi generally is well set up if the market actually behaves a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's been pushed down so long and so hard, and it's kind of clear. To me at least, it's kind of clear that the whole like Solana dominance has kind of like stopped. The meme coins that are launched on Solana now, they're worth nothing. Like they barely make it like to $1 million market cap, whereas back in the day it would be like $1 billion. I think that season basically is clearly over, and I don't necessarily think it's gonna come back. So you have alternative chains to Solana, and then you have obviously like the moment Solana loses like dominance, you have people looking at ETH, right? And I think that's why you have a little bit of opportunity in the DeFi space before kind of like the new Solana comes around and kind of does the same thing again, whereas like a new chain that does meme coins, people get rich because the chain token or the chain coin went up a shitload, and then people gamble with that. We kind of had that with Hype, right? I think Hype kind of took a lot of the interest in Solana away, and then the moment you get another one, it's going to take away from ETH. But right now it's set up quite nicely. It just needs the market to behave for the DeFi stuff. Like, I actually like it. I think the reason why Aave and, I mean, like you said, Maker's been decent in the last couple of weeks, and like why these are performing better than you would expect them to, it's because I think they're taking advantage of the broad landscape of basically everyone on Solana got giga-wrecked on the meme coins, and they're looking for something else now. And
I mean, there's also like a DeFi reset, right? Like from a regulatory
of course. I mean, otherwise there was no chance.
Yeah, for sure. It's also like the revenue meta, I think, is part of it. Even though that's hilarious as a concept, revenue meta is like, oh, look, a profitable company. But we've always had this tension where the token itself wasn't allowed to do shit, you know, and there was no fee switch, and it wasn't really equity, and you didn't have access to those cash flows, and Jeff Dorman would have a fucking meltdown on Twitter, like that whole thing. Whereas now that's sort of soft changing a little bit, whereas like, oh, okay, well, we're going to have a useless governance token, at least we're going to use it for buybacks, you know? Or if the entire DeFi regulatory landscape is going to change, maybe we can like rebuild or build around it and start building value into the token, etc., etc. So I think there's some of that going on. I think a lot of it is driven by like hype price action. People just start making reasoning leaps from there, being like, oh, what does it mean if a protocol like associated with a token just like starts buying it back, or is a profitable business or makes money? I think like seeing hype made DeFi sexy again, and made companies that make money sexy again, even if their token doesn't have that explicit mechanism yet, you know?
Yeah, well said. I mean, the whole hype thing has been hype.
Yeah,
it's been all. Like, it's 90% of what I see on Twitter now.
Yeah. And I mean, I get it, you know. Great price action, high performance, good narrative. What the fuck else do you need? Early, you know, how many times have we talked about like wealth effects on this channel of making people rich first, like since the ICO era, essentially, for ETH, and then DeFi and NFTs and food tokens and Solana.
You've seen it in BNB.
Yeah, BNB, PancakeSwap, that entire thing. So yeah, a lot of boxes are getting ticked. It's going to be interesting how the competition landscape shifts. Like, you know, Coinbase is starting to offer perps in the US, for example, right? So then you'll get a decent view as that gets built out of how much of hype market share is Reg Arb sort of KYC bypassing / better anonymity versus actual performance and like the token and the exchange itself, etc. Like there's some interesting discoveries to be made, but like in terms of leading the way for performant perp dexes. Like I think the revitalization came entirely from hype, which is great because we need some crypto native ones like Drift and DYDX, and we had a few come and go, but they I don't think they were ever as sticky as this, both on a mindshare level, but also just like on a core performance level. I didn't have a clear, like, dude, I don't know about you, but at least in the past, I could get like a decent grasp of what people gave a shit about in terms of centralized exchange altcoins. And even when there's no meta, it was clear that there was no meta. This current one I find pretty tricky. It literally just seems like Solana still kind of like a hangover trade. And then there's hype for obvious like outlier strength. And then there's ETH for, oh my God, is it finally time? And then Fartcoin is like a meme coin async trend type of thing. What am I missing, if anything, from like the centralized exchange altcoin landscape?
No, I mean, I think that's pretty much it.
Is that it? Like,
yeah.
Is that some RWA thing that we're fucking sleeping on, or?
I mean, there's Murat's coin that's
SPX 6900 or whatever.
Yeah, 6900.
Legend. But like, I don't know. Like, is that it?
I mean, yeah, I generally think the market's just been piss poor, basically.
Like, look at Nero, remember that old chestnut?
I mean, I didn't remember the name. I don't even know what it's about.
Yeah, I'm just looking through like even the Velo page, trying to fucking recognize any of these. I mean, XMR went up for a little bit at one point.
Yeah, a lot of people keep asking me about XMR.
I mean, XRP is still fucking sideways, right? Hasn't broken down yet, but it's done fuck all for quite a while now. Yeah, dude, like, what about these layer ones? Like DOT. I mean, DOT is at fucking zero.
I mean,
LTC, no. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, the market is just bad.
It's shit, now. Right? Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's not like there's this, like, underground current and we're fucking too boomery and not noticing it. It's like a couple of fucking altcoins. And then it's BTC public company purchases, then the rest of the market is like a piece of shit, right? Like,
no, everyone is losing money.
Can someone in the comments please correct us? Like, I want to be corrected on this. Like, dude, you're a fucking idiot. You're washed up. Your watch list is shit. You're not looking at ABC. This is where like all the cool shit and all the money is. And look at these charts, etc. Like, where are they? Like, I want to believe there's a parallel universe that I'm completely fucking missing out on because I'm washed and my watch list is a piece of shit. But like, from what I can tell, it's like BTC, ETH catch-up trade / cope, and then like hype, Fartcoin, Sol, and
I think Sol is already stretching it.
Yeah, and then a bit of DeFi maybe.
Yep.
Is that it? Is that the market?
There is the market.
Fuck, I mean,
everyone is, like I said, everyone's losing money.
I swear that's shit though. What I've just described, isn't that like a shit market? That does not feel like a bull market.
I mean, that's why everyone is hoping for old season.
Right.
That's why everyone is upset.
Everyone except Netanyahu, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, we were set up quite nicely, but I think that's also a little bit of cope talking, because at the end of the day, like, if the market is strong, this doesn't take it down, and it's clear that the Altcoin market has been piss weak. It's just that this time is the first time that ETH was actually trying to break out and then got stuffed, whereas in the last, like, I don't know, like last year or two, it's just been like ETH's been weak and then something bad happened and then it broke support. In this case, it was like ETH was actually strong for once, and that's why people are upset, because they kind of think, and I think for good reason, they think that if ETH goes up, the altcoins generally get a bit. And I kind of think that is true. So we're in this situation where you need ETH to go up for these other coins to go up. But ETH keeps getting nuked by global events. But generally, the market's just shit. I mean, you can straight up, any Bitcoin pair that you look at is like close or already making new lows. Like there's like you look at Sol BTC, that looks awful. I mean, straight up awful. I don't know if you've looked at it in a while. It's almost erased the entire bull market gains.
That's pretty rough. I mean, it's looking like ETH BTC. Like you mentioned this, made this argument before, but yeah.
Oh yeah, before it actually broke down, we talked about
pre-acceleration ETH BTC.
Yeah, and now it's looking like acceleration ETH BTC. Whereas ETH doesn't look like that anymore. Like you look at ETH BTC now, there's a stark contrast. it still looks it still
Yeah,
looks
dude,
like someone
I
was
just zoomed
murdered.
out. Yeah.
It looks like someone stabbed Eve and it's bleeding out. But at least there's some signs of life
Yeah, there
there.
was
You
like
go,
one good week, you know? That's
I
a
mean,
pretty
a
big
good
deal.
week. Look at Sol BTC. There's not been a good week in a long, long time.
This market fucking sucks, dude. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
not
the
in like a
open market
doomer
has.
type of way, but it's literally just like if you're not in the couple of outperforming altcoins, or you're just constantly fucking long BTC or ETH for the last like, if you didn't catch the one day where ETH went up, right?
Yeah.
Then you're just having a shit time. You're fucking bleeding, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why, like, and I mean, I've made this argument like for years and years now, is that like, if you actually want to make sure that you make money in this market, I mean, Bitcoin's the way to go, right? Like, there's all
Still,
these,
even at 100 fucking K. I mean, it's funny because
yeah.
it's actually becoming like more dominant in that type of way. I do want to talk about BTC because I've got some headlines here, Don, before we doom too hard. Although I think some of these headlines might make us doom as well. GameStop upsizes private offering to 2.25 billion despite stock slump amid Bitcoin treasury plans. So
Yeah.
again, if you look at the amount of this saying, "Oh, this is all scary," Bitcoin public purchasing company copycat. Casual Friday paid group listeners heard it first.
Knew it first.
Yeah, they were like, "Hey, this is a thing, and it ain't good." I don't think it's worth rehashing the views here. It's basically that they will continue, like, these vehicles are going to gobble up a bunch of BTC, and then most of them are going to spit it right back out. Like, that is how it ends, you know? Now, you can get, of course, you shouldn't think that they will spit it back out, therefore I will short right this second. That's not how you do that. Like, for example, you could have identified the flaws in the Terra Luna anchor mechanism on day one, but if you shorted it then, you've had a fucking rough time, right? So timing is a huge part of the game. But I think in terms of just like path dependency, yeah, it's how this shit ends up. Like, you build a house of cards on kind of leverage and selling expectations of BTC going up forever and this fucking MNAV mechanism. Some players are a lot later than others and get an average entry price of like 110K or whatever the fuck. Like, they're gonna spit it out, and them spitting it out will have market impact. And then the people who are slightly before them but still late spit theirs out. Like, this is how this
Ponzi,
thing. Yeah, it's a fucking house of cards. I mean, GBTC again went from like, what was the steepest premium on that thing? It was something insane, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
multiple,
it was
100%.
It was insane that trade made minted fresh billionaires in crypto, and then that same trade actually just like killed the industry and large parts of it. So like, yeah, these things can get fucking massive, but they always kind of end up the same way. And there is a huge difference between, like, let's say Sailor versus Bitcoin public strategy company number 55,000, whose average entry price is like the fucking Pico Schmico top and isn't drawdown immediately. Before they could even acquire like enough BTC to act as a buffer. So yeah, I think like this is cool. Like, if it works and the market is willing to play the game, I think your first and primary objective should be like, I'm going to align myself with this until it starts looking fucking shaky. And then the game becomes like dumping on these people before they spit out all their BTC. That's it, right? It's like if you know that fraud is happening on an order book in a pair, and you're like, this is like a fucking getting. Okay, there are certain market makers we know and certain so-called trading firms and liquidity providing firms, services, whatever, who play these games, as we saw on Binance Perps, right? Yeah. It's like when you see that type of behavior, you could say, oh, this is fucking fraudulent and it's going to end badly. But like, I think your primary position should be like, hey, like, can I align myself with these super price insensitive, indiscriminately large buyers? And to what extent and how long can I afford to do that? And then the game becomes exiting before they dump on you. And it's tricky. But your options aren't great. It's either like sit out because you know it's going to end badly, but I think that's like, you can't really trade that super well. The only way you trade that is if you really fucking defer your marshmallow test choice and say, look, eventually this is going to blow up and eventually it's going to lead to like a 60-80% decline and then I'll buy in. But God knows how long that takes. And also God knows how high it goes in the process before that happens. So your starting point, I think, should be I'm going to align myself with this as far as it looks kind of plausible and reasonable to do so. And then when it starts collapsing, I'm going to hope that I have enough foresight to get out. Do you agree, disagree? How would you approach something like this where you know there's like almost like a Ponzi mechanism on the bid side, but you also have seen this movie before and know how it ends? Where do you fucking go with this?
I mean, so there's two different different ways that I've played this in my life. And the one, and they both start out the same way. Like you see fraud like this happening. No, there's three ways actually. There's three options that you have. Okay, one is just not buying it. You're like, okay, I mean, this is like a Ponzi scheme, and why would I be buying a Ponzi scheme? I think it's the worst way to go about it, at least if you're a trader, because I mean, the Ponzi schemes, they're gonna be Ponziing. That's just kind of like, that's the best trade that you're gonna find. It's the most extreme one. And the second way, like if you decide to buy it, even though you know that there's Ponzi kind of behavior going on, is you buy and then you just kind of like, you think that you're good enough to spot when this is going to run out of steam. And that's how I used to do it. I was just kind of like, I think this is like, I have the ability to kind of see this through, and just kind of like just sell it as close to the top as possible. That has the risk of you just not timing it right, and it just get completely obliterated, and you basically lose all the money. But for me, that has historically worked really well. Just the top signs are quite obvious, as long as you don't kind of fall for the euphoria, and you don't like, you're not in chat rooms, you're not in like in Discord groups or whatever, where people keep telling you that this is the new best thing and that it's forever gonna go up. Like as long as you don't get influenced by that kind of behavior, like that can work quite well. But I think for the normal kind of persons, it's really hard to do. It's worked well enough for me, but even I'm too old for this shit now. That's not what I do anymore. What I do now is when I see this, is like I buy a little and I just sell on the way up. And then I try to like get the last sell in when I think it's topping. And if it doesn't top afterwards and it still goes to 2x, I'm just like, whatever. Like, who cares? I made money with this Ponzi. For me, it's clearly a Ponzi. If I was reasonable, I would have never bought in the first place, and I still made money. And then you just stay out, right? Like the worst thing you can do when something is behaving like a Ponzi or is a Ponzi and you have bought and then you have sold is to buy back in, because that is always going to lose you money. So in this instance, for example, like I'm just in the boat of, okay, I'm just going to take profit along the way. I have done so this entire cycle. Like I just rotate money out of the market. And I think the more aggressive this gets, like the more successful Sailor and the copycats get, you're going to get more copycats, and then the Ponzi is going to aggressively Ponzi. And I think basically I thought that we were through the whole bull bear market cycle, that we like as an industry would just be like, it's too big now. But with all of these mechanisms that are getting introduced, and with all of these companies just kind of like doing all of this shit, I think we will get another 80% Bitcoin crash once this is all done,
or at least like a similar magnitude type of crash.
Yes,
right? Whether
like
it's 60,
70,
70, 80, like old school basically.
Old school, which I didn't think would happen. Like I really didn't think it would happen again.
I don't know. I think people
now
like
I think it will.
That's a tricky one, because like I think a lot of people just decided because ETFs exist, cycles no longer exist, and I think we argued against that very premise in the past, right? And especially when you consider that really when we talk about like bull bear cycles, at least in the crypto context, what we're really talking about is like aggressive credit expansion and contraction cycles. And again, on this show, presciently, we were like, hey, we need a fucking credit. We need credit markets in crypto. Like we need leverage. We need someone to commit crime, basically, for this thing to start going up. And like the ETFs are nice because at least some part of it is like, you know, programmatic, passive flow, whatever. But that's never really sexy, right? That doesn't give you parabolas. Doesn't give you like stretcher, bears carried out on a stretcher type of candles. That's more like drifty, programmatic price action. Whereas if you want like, hey, this shit's gonna double, triple, and be the best performing asset class, you need fucking credit cycles. And I just think like for this cycle, this is it. These Bitcoin public vehicle acquisition dog shit, they give me money to buy Bitcoin and then that's it, basically. And by the way, there's like financial alchemy there, and MNAV and premium, and Bitcoin going up lets me buy more Bitcoin type of shit. I think that's essentially the credit creation and expansion mechanism for this cycle. But like, there's always a corresponding contraction in credit after the expansion, and it usually comes off the back of the fucking late entrants and those who are over leveraged and people who just aren't ready for any type of pullback, essentially, or just like any adverse market conditions whatsoever. So I think this is it, Don. Just like friend to friend, mate to mate, like fuck the show as we talk just casually between ourselves. Like I don't know exactly how it's going to unfold or the time horizon, how high it goes, whatever, but like I can't see anything else that would come close. Like the ETFs were effective and did their job, but they're kind of boring, you know? And like a lot of the inflows were to arb the basis as well, and that got noisy, and it's not like super sexy. And clearly the ETFs weren't the be all end all, because a large part of, you know, the reason GBTC got so big back in the day was because like there's no way to get institutional exposure or like tax favorable exposure to BTC. So here's like a closed-ended piece of shit fund, but it's the best we got, you know. And now the best we got is fucking BlackRock.
Like, I mean, it's a lot better.
Yeah, it's a lot better. Like if that's not good enough, then it was never about BTC exposure in the first place. It's about building, you know, sort of leveraged call option, so-called yield infrastructure around it. And I think this is it. So GameStop upsizing, and then you'll love this headline, Don. You ready? Anthony Pompliano in talks to lead public firm seeking 750 million to purchase Bitcoin. So, you know, when the bear market is here, you can sell a fucking mattress. And then when the bull market comes, you get a Billy to buy Bitcoin with other people's money. Like, it's incredible. Oh, and you have to glaze Trump and tariffs in the process as well, just to kind of hedge.
I mean, it's quite impressive
fucking legend.
What you can do. Like
the virus is spreading. Do you remember him from 2017? Yeah. That was his thing. Very prescient. He knew about the lab in Wuhan before anyone else, I think.
I mean, at the end of the day, like that's the secret alpha. You just need to be confident enough, no matter how competent you are, and kind of like just suck up to whoever's in power, and then you get like millions and millions.
I mean, he removed Bitcoin and all references to crypto during the lows at one point. I remember you could look through his profile and there was nothing crypto or BTC related. He like removed all of it and was doing like startup stuff and whatever else. And you know, it's like a fair weather fan, basically.
Most of these
people are.
Most of the people that put their face out realistically are kind of like.
Yes.
Like whenever you see a doxed person in crypto, they almost always act like this. Like they're very, very like in favor of crypto while it's going up, and then they suddenly just like delete everything when it's going down. But yeah, I generally think, as you said earlier, like this whole Ponzi scheme-ish thing, that's gonna be the story of the cycle. I mean, that's another example of it. And but the thing is, like, and this I want to make clear before we move on, is like Bitcoin could go to 300K before that happens, right? And if Bitcoin pulls back from 300K towards like it does a 70% pullback, right? You're still trading at decent numbers, in at least when you're looking at it from the standpoint of now, right? Like from 300K, 70% would be roughly where we are right now. Like you'd be trading at 90K-ish. And I mean, that's still fine, like if you're looking at it from the current standpoint, but that's obviously like very, very painful. But I think just generally it's very, very important this cycle to remember that it's all bought on borrowed money, and like the higher it goes, the nastier the fall is gonna get. And I think that's pretty clear. I don't think there's a way in which this doesn't happen, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
And again, it doesn't mean go short this second because you're so smart and you know how it's going to end. That's not what trading is, you know.
Yeah.
Like there are tons of people who knew Bitcoin was going to end up at 100K and they fucked up every single trade along the way, and vice versa. There are those who saw the writing on the wall when it came to these downside scenarios, but it's all in the timing and the execution. But yeah, I just think you live by the credit and die by the credit, you know. So you can't have one without the other. And we found it, but boy, it's also kind of speeding up at a worrying pace, I think. Spot Ethereum ETFs pull in 240 mil, beating Bitcoin ETFs 164 mil daily inflows.
Let's go.
That was yesterday, but that also means it's fucking over because look at it now, Don. This is what you caused. ETH going from like, ETH is up 1%, the entire market nuking, and then ETF flipping BTC. That's it. It's over. Pack it up. Your entry is adamantium resistance, and the sooner you come to terms with that, I think the easier.
There will be a day where I'm in profit again, but
yeah. No, I mean that's just funny, to be honest.
yeah, it is really funny.
I think fundamentally, like, there's also like this Ethereum, Joe Lubin's Ethereum strategy company. That's a thing as well, but it looks like
that
they
went to zero.
Yeah, but apparently that's because of like some filing thing. It doesn't really mean that they actually sold. It was like some who gives a shit? Like, I think they bought already from what I've read, and it's also in itself a separate indicator of how far along are we in this Bitcoin, corporate strategy meta. If people are trying it on like other tokens already, like there was a FET one, there was a Solana one. So now not only do we have like copycats within the same instrument, we now have copycats within other instruments as well. Like, you're not first inning if that's happening, in my view at least. But we'll see. We'll see. And the final one, Circle's IPO frenzy sets new precedent for crypto firms eyeing public listings. Circle went public and they mooned it, even though their business is kind of shit, to be honest. There are rumored plans from exchanges like Gemini and Kraken, according to this article. Bullish, the EOS money fund, basically, also made a filing. Dude, there's just like a lot of shit happening where I'm like, like 2018... 2022 fucking tourist part of my brain is like, why do you, if you're someone inexperienced coming to crypto, you're probably going to think like, oh my God, this is so exciting. There's so many IPOs and Bitcoin is over 100,000 and all these companies are raising money to buy Bitcoin. Wow, what an exciting time to be a part of the cryptocurrency space, Meanwhile, someone who's been here since 2017 is like, oh fuck, Pomp is raising money. Like, you're on the complete other end of the spectrum. That can get you into bad places if you're doing European bear tard mode, right? Like, famously. But some of these things, like the fucking IPO spam and Bitcoin corporate strategy spam and fucking Pomp and all this other stuff, I'm a bit like cautious, at least. Not like, oh, I'm gonna fucking stop the stream and short everything, but it's like, how much of we, how quickly is this credit bubble gonna inflate and deflate, and how, what's gonna be there to pick up who's gonna be there to pick up the pieces at the end?
Me.
Yeah, you and I see you in the fucking book. That's also the fun part of it, right? Like, if you have the luxury of really trading low frequency, you can just be like, okay, I'm gonna TLDR, like trend follow BTC hype, whatever else. When I get stopped out on that, if it's sufficiently wide and high time frame and not super sensitive, right? Once that gets stopped out, I've probably given back like a decent chunk of my money, but whatever. That's kind of how you trend follow, right? Yeah. I've given back a decent chunk of my money, and now we wait. And I will wait for this fucking market to deflate and chop through and die. And when I get the 60, 70%, 80% correction, that's when I'm going to start just putting size on and run it all over again. I genuinely think that's like not a terrible model for approaching this. You're like, yeah, okay, we're in the full swing of the credit cycle. I'm going to trend follow with a decently insensitive strategy so I don't get wicked out and close everything every 5%. When that gets stopped out, the high time frame trend following, I'm going to wait because I think there's a decent chance that the parabolas are broken, the bubble is fucked, and whatever else, ta-da, Yeah. Obviously, that's 10 times easier said than done, but as a framework, I think it's something useful there. What do you think?
I agree. Like, I for one appreciate all the troubles people go through to make this bubble extend and go bigger. I appreciate their work. I don't think it's necessarily for the good of Bitcoin, but it's for the good of me.
Please commit fraud. Do whatever things you have to do, legal or illegal, to continue.
I mean, as long as it's focused on Bitcoin, like, I don't like the altcoin fraud because that just takes away from everyone, Like, yes. But like the Bitcoin fraud that people are trying to do, I mean, sure, go ahead. It's just how it is. And I mean, it is battle testing crypto and Bitcoin in the process, yes. Right? So like, whatever. As a trader, I just really like find this is the fun part about crypto, right? Like the fact that it goes up a lot and goes down a lot, like that's the fun part. So I mean, by God, keep doing it. But I do not understand why people keep falling for it. Like, it's crazy to me. And I mean, we'll see how this one ends. Maybe we are just the washed up boomers and it's going to be at 300K. Yes. And we're going to sell everything and then it's going to go to 600K. Yeah. And the dollar is going to go to zero. So it's going to go to 500 billion. And we're sitting there cryptoless. Maybe. I'm always prepared for that. by, I mean, just you gotta be always hedged, you know.
Yes, I saw that tweet surface from
Oh,
my
that was
message
such a
in
good tweet.
2018. I can't believe that. I also can't believe how old I am now. I've spent what 8 years on crypto Twitter now.
Yeah,
I fucking grew up here, dude. It's terrifying.
yeah. I mean, it's gonna this fucks with your head, huh?
This is
Like
not safe. Yeah, this is a crypto Twitter was an experiment conducted by Harvard University. You know, the psychological faculty. The experiment is now complete, or whatever.
yeah,
But yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, it's difficult to summarize this. TLDR, BTC weekly 104k is still important. What makes it tricky right now is we're at the last final ditch test of support. But then if there's any escalation, you'd expect a part of this to push lower. And typically you want to buy the push lower, but this is atypical because the push lower would start breaking the high time frame charts. So it's kind of pick your poison, which is either to wait for the total fucking nuke follow through below 104 and sufficiently discounted to then be attractive, which is under 100, or pray to God that 104 holds. And if you're going to trade that, do it with a lot of monitoring and tighter on the risk management front. I think that's it for BTC. On the ETH front, just fuck Don and his long entry. I think that's the summary. But in terms of technical developments, the daily breakout, the daily failed breakout sucks. But it's so bearish that if it gets back above, it'd be bullish. How's that one? I'm trying to fucking throw you a lifeline here. So if it does manage to get above 2.7, then you can say that ETH had a failed breakout, which is a super bearish pattern on a super bearish asset, but it reclaimed it, and that's a big deal. And then you should fucking send it and hope that some candle bodies come back into the mix on the weekly and start to push through to what 3k plus 4k whatever.
yeah. I actually like that. Yeah.
As soon as you see candle bodies on ETH, that's when you should start paying attention on the weekly time frame.
Yeah, I actually like it. Above 2.8k, just go towards like 5.
There you go. Okay, well, fuck me. Okay, there you go. Now we know who's buying all of Joe Lubin's fucking companies. On the altcoin front, it's just fucking shit. Look for async stuff that stands out for good reasons or for bad reasons. It's kind of a game of like, it feels like hyper liquid than everything else, to be honest, at the moment. So do with that what you will. I think hype's at a decent-ish level. It's pretty sensitive to round numbers recently, but like I think there's a $40 to fucking $30 range, basically. And you could trade that, or you could just fucking hold some, because I think anyone who's tried to trade hype has ended up regretting it, which feels exactly what Solana felt like, you know, in 2021. It's like anyone who held Sol and tried to trade it for any amount of time generally ended up regretting it. So obviously not a one-to-one analog, but something potentially useful there. And as far as broader market stuff goes, we kind of know what the playbook is like with these BTC Ponzi companies. It's just a matter of, are you smart enough to ride with them while they have juice and then get the fuck out before they spit out all the BTC that they gobbled up, except doing it on the way down in distressed conditions into thin and empty order books paints quite a different chart to when they do it on the way up. Yeah. Fuck it.
Perfect.
That's
well
it.
said.
Anything else from you? Questions, comments, concerns, feedback, life updates, fucking marathon training bullshit?
No, all good, all good.
Fantastic. Well, that's it then. Before you click off, leave a like on this video. Leave us a comment as well. If we're missing out on some fucking secret Atlantis sunken city world of altcoins, please let us know. Love to hear about it. You know, we at least know that we're washed up boomers. We're cognizant of that and are willing to update our priors. I think, you know, of all things, we're at least open-minded about that. Leave us a comment generally. We'd love to hear from you. Hope you'll have a fantastic weekend. Thank you to Woo for supporting the show as always. Their links are in the description. Have a great weekend once again, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.